For me, a mountain hike is always an opportunity to challenge my strength and endurance, while seeing places that are available to only a few. It is also an opportunity to literally touch the skies with my hands, because of how low the clouds descend in the morning hours. A few years ago, we had already conquered this track, and since then, mountains have taken residence in my heart. Their magnificence, their majesty, the sound of the wind traveling among the peaks, and the sensation of complete serenity and peace that speaks directly to my soul. Ahead of us laid 50 miles of mountain tundra, endless peaks and valleys, and a desire to test ourselves once again. The most precious commodity in the mountains this time of year is water. Starting in July until the end of August, the tundra is completely dry. Occasionally, one can run into a rain puddle. The water in it is dirty, but even it can become a salvation for a thirsty traveler. The weight of my backpack was about 60 pounds. The heaviest thing in it is water, of course. As the water gradually diminishes, the backpack becomes lighter, and I can't help but feel as light as a feather. Following the experience of years past, we were counting about 3 gallons of water per person. There are not many trails such as China Dome. Not often one lacks for provisions or becomes extremely exhausted. But this trail I consider extremely difficult. It's not for beginners, and even advanced backpackers will not think of it as an easy one. I want to be honest, I was a bit too self-confident. This is something that the mountains don't forgive. Usually our food rations consisted of pre-cooked porridge with butter, a bit of honey, crackers, dry bread, and other carbs that could help restore energy quickly during this intense activity. This time we changed our usual food for pre-cooked noodles with canned stewed beef because many backpackers that we know use those for their hikes for high-carb diet. Unfortunately, this was a mistake. More about this later. Even in August, the day is fairly long and one has to walk until the sunset. This is because staying inside the tent is hot and outside of it the bugs are relentless. Starting a fire is out of the question because of the dry tundra and very strong winds. We had seen a wildfire far off from where we were, but the wind brought the smoke to our location. It smelled as if somebody was burning autumn leaves. The fire looked apocalyptic. However, soon the firefighting helicopters were unseen, and within an hour only smoke remained while lowering itself into the tree line below. On the first day after hiking 16 miles, I didn't feel too tired. After consuming a good portion of beef noodles and a few sports bars, I wanted to cradle in a sleeping bag and fall asleep. This was a false feeling. After only 20 minutes, I felt chills, while my body was hot. The shakes and the cold bothered me for the whole night. The intensive workout had accelerated the metabolic processes, and my muscles burned most of the energy reserves. Laying in a tent, trying to get comfortable inside the sleeping bag, I was criticizing myself for not taking the tried and true porridge, for forgetting the vitamins, and for trying to save water. I'm not a professional hiker or a sports person, and despite leading an active lifestyle, the effort needed for this trek was a lot for me. However, at this point of time there was no going back. And even if I could go back, it's not in my nature. On the second day the weather was good. The night wasn't too cold, if a little windy. After having a sturdy breakfast, at 6 a.m. sharp, we had started on the trail. Everything was going well, and around 11 I was even able to catch a quick nap leaning against some rocks. At some point one becomes completely indifferent to the swarms of insects that bite one's skin, and to the burned by the sun face that is relentless overhead. All desires become very basic, just a little rest, only a bit more water. But even at that moment, I feel very happy because of those gorgeous expanses, everything I can see and smell. This can only be experienced directly and in person. See with one's eyes, smell with one's nose, and touch every rock and every berry. Despite the dry season and an approach of fall, there were plenty of berries, especially in the valleys, right before the trail snaked into the woods. The trees provided the berry bushes with ample shadow, not allowing the sun to dry them. We were happy to gorge on blueberries, just like the black bear we stumbled upon. Despite the fact that the bear was fair distance away, we talked loudly and held our spray at the ready. The bear spray is often used by hikers to deter bears from attacking or getting too close to the humans. The spray is not a guarantee of safety. However, Running into a wildlife in such a remote area is very unlikely. The caribou had migrated north, while bears and moose are very rare. When the bear heard us, he was a bit perturbed. He tried a bit of posturing, but eventually ran away into the forest. I always follow best practice and take our food about 200 feet away from the habitat. We cover the food with rocks and make sure that if something or somebody wants to get after the food, they make ruckus and thus alerting us to their presence. Towards the middle of the day, we made it to the shelter. The shelter allows for a refill of water supplies. In fact, that's the only spot on the trail where this can be done. There are 2 covered barrels on the ground and a funnel from the roof that allows rainwater to accumulate in them. By that time, we were almost out of water. We had just begun filtering our water when our only filter broke. It would only filter 1 mouthful at a time, but filtering our water container was impossible. We had cooked our porridge and coffee using just rainwater. We had also refilled some of our containers with contaminated water, knowing we could always boil it in a pinch. After much needed rest and a bit of food, we continued on. In the valleys, we took small rests after descents before beginning the climb again. If I had to choose between going up or going down, I would probably prefer going up. While going down, it's very easy to lose balance. Small rocks often shift under the tired feet, while our boots provide ample support for the ankle. Getting injured here means loss of everything. Who will come to the rescue? Who will save? For those remote hikes, we pack a special tracker. The tracker is able to summon emergency rescue via satellite. However, this would be a very costly rescue, and nobody wants to test how well the system works. The dusk gradually descended upon us, and the cairns disappeared from the view, so we decided to set up camp. I still didn't want to eat since our lunch was so filling, but I realized this was necessary. A hike like this forces me to lose about 10 pounds. However, this weight comes back quickly since half of it is just water. That night the deep sleep didn't come. I still felt the chills, but even in that moment, I didn't want to get to the comfort of my home as quickly as possible. This trek for me is a challenge, realization of self-limits, and through perseverance and despite the difficulties, conquering the ultimate goal, hiking through the trail. Everything that one must learn comes this way, otherwise it will not be remembered. On the 3rd day, we woke up early and began our hike. That day, we made slow progress and stopped frequently to rest and snack. We wanted to finish the trek before the beginning of the night. Mixed feelings were battling inside me. Some years ago, when we attempted this trek for the first time, we had to abandon it and turn back. We were not ready. We didn't have the right experience. Then a year later, we hiked it through. This time, I have a feeling this will be the last. I could be mistaken, however. A few years from now, I might again yearn for this drive, the conquering of self, and a peace in realizing that a human being is just a speck of dust compared to the greatness of the mountains.